Keeping kayfabe, or in other words, staying in character, is a code that wrestlers have lived by until recently due to the rise of the digital era and social media. Kayfabe these days is hanging on by a thread, with fans always wanting more and the demands of the WWE network to constantly keep producing more and more content. Even The Undertaker is now coming out in interviews as Mark Holloway and slowly detaching himself from The Undertaker as he starts to wind down and bring his career to an end. And wrestlers like Rusev and Ryback leaving the WWE and doing shoot interviews about their previous storylines. With that being said, I want to show you guys in no particular order 5 times when WWE wrestlers broke kayfabe. Starting out with the hugely controversial curtain call incident at Madison Square Garden in 1996. This happened when the WWF at the time was ushering in the start of the best era in professional wrestling, the Attitude Era. The curtain call happened at the worst possible time for the WWF, and more specifically Vince McMahon, who was driving himself crazy, caught up in the Monday Night Wars against Eric Bischoff when the WWF and WCW were facing off in a ratings war for supremacy. The curtain call involved 4 of wrestling's most popular and powerful stars at that time: Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. The group was otherwise known as The Clique. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall's contracts were coming to an end and they were appearing in their final matches as WWF superstars. At the event, Kevin Nash took on Shawn Michaels in the main event. Now after the main event, Razor Ramon entered the ring and hugged Shawn Michaels. Then Triple H entered the ring and then he hugged Michaels and Hall, with Diesel eventually joining in for a long group hug. Following up with the 4 turning to the crowd with their arms raised but leaving the fans confused as they had no idea what was happening. It is no doubt that the curtain call changed the face of pro wrestling. It left WWE upper management in disarray when they saw what went down. To give some context, at the time, Shawn Michaels and Scott Hall worked as babyfaces. In other words, they were the good guys, and Triple H and Big Daddy Cool worked as heels, the bad guys. Traditionally, the images of babyfaces and heels were always protected inside and outside of the ring. These 4 superstars had destroyed that same illusion for many wrestling fans. The Clique broke wrestling's holy grail of unwritten rules, and footage would soon surface. Somebody had to take the punishment. Now, Shawn Michaels was the poster boy, the biggest draw for the company at the time. He was totally exempt from punishment. The only person that was left was Triple H, who would take all the blame for the curtain call, and Vince got out his golden shovel. The events that went down at the curtain call will always be remembered, as it opened the floodgates for kayfabe to be dropped at any time and causing the 4th wall in professional wrestling to be broken many times afterwards. Next on the list is the Montreal Screwjob. I know it's a cliche, but how can you not mention such a controversial part of wrestling history? To break it down, Bret Hart, who was the biggest star in wrestling at the time, was WWF champion and was packing his bags for WCW. Obviously, Vince didn't want Bret to take off with the WWF title after his final match at Survivor Series 97, where he was scheduled to face Shawn Michaels. Hart refused to lose the title to Shawn, and in his country of Canada, due to a personal long-lasting feud with Michaels and also his family being in attendance, Vince was in a very tough spot. He created a secret plan with Michaels and long-time WWF referee Earl Hebner. At the Survivor Series match, Shawn Michaels would execute Bret Hart's signature sharpshooter and the referee would call for the bell, saying Bret tapped out without him even submitting. After the bell rung, Bret Hart was confused and Vince was heard yelling at the timekeeper to ring the damn bell beforehand. Hart got up to his feet and spat in the face of Vince McMahon, who ordered Michaels to grab the belt and get out. Hart was left in the ring and smashed anything he could get his hands on before signaling WCW and leaving. Up next is the moment Terry Funk thought Mick Foley had died. Looking at Mick Foley's career as a human ragdoll, nobody can forget his universally known Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker. During the match, Terry Funk, who was longtime friends with Mick Foley and currently involved in a storyline feud with Foley, intervened and shattered kayfabe. Foley went flying off the top of the cell and through the announce table, with JR screaming that Foley was dead and Terry Funk rushing out from the back to Foley's aid to check his pulse. JR simply tried playing this off, but after The Undertaker chokeslammed Foley through the top of the cell, making him crash down to the mat, Funk ran back into the ring and had to buy Foley some time and started throwing fists at The Undertaker, leading him to receiving a chokeslam and shattered kayfabe and shattered his back in the process. Who can forget the 2005 Royal Rumble because of its memorable finish, with Batista and John Cena eliminating each other and being declared as winners by different referees? The truth is, something went wrong. The elimination was too perfect to have been scripted, since both wrestlers fell to the floor at the same time. The original plan was for Batista to hang on to the ropes and win the Rumble, but he had butterfingers and slipped. Surprisingly, both wrestlers and referees improvised smoothly on the spot before Vince came storming to the ring and tore both of his quads and fell to the floor. I mean, can you just imagine your boss sat on the floor with both of his quads torn like a maniac? This showed that no matter what happens, Vince McMahon is an all-time GOAT. And the final moment on the list is The Undertaker and his struggles in the Attitude Era. During this time, Undertaker struggled to find his place on the roster, with the WWE moving away from gimmicks to much more edgier and relatable characters. The Undertaker was frustrated with his position and booking for quite a while, but he settled and remained professional and loyal to the company even till today. Despite seeing his friends switch to WCW, The Undertaker reached a boiling point, and during one of his promos in 1998, The Undertaker broke kayfabe, turning his promo into a work shoot, moving away from the character that fans had known at the time. He called out Vince McMahon for making him a transitional champion and not a true headliner. Taker would continue to vent in this promo for quite a while about his status within the company. The fans sort of suspected that this was simply to advance the feud between Taker and McMahon, which was true to an extent, but Taker took it one step too far by breaking kayfabe and delivering his points, and kayfabe would be thrown completely out of the window. And that's all for this video. If you made it to the end, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more wrestling content here on WrestlingReel.